Welcome to the 6 Ways to Sunday podcast, hosted by award-winning television director, documentary filmmaker, author, and speaker Craig D. Forrest. Join Craig for the next few minutes as he interviews leaders, artists, and creatives about trends and insights shaping our digital world and faith-based media. This podcast is produced and brought to you by Matchstick Media International. Now, here's Craig.
This has been a wonderful conversation with Phil Cooke, who is a producer and director based in America, but he speaks all over the world at conferences and film schools. Phil, you have a great book called One Thing?
One Big Thing.
One Big Thing. Talk about that.
One Big Thing, discovering what you were born to do.
Okay.
You know, I spent so many years working with nonprofit organizations, churches, and ministries on this branding issue. And part of the branding issue is finding that niche, finding that area where you just really excel. And that I discovered the most successful people out there are not people who are pretty good at a lot of things. They're people who are extraordinary at one big thing. Mm-hmm. And so I started applying some of these branding principles to our own lives. And I realized that there's too many people out there that are trying to be good at a lot of things. I say stop that and be extraordinary at one big thing. I just really believe research, my experience, all of it indicates that we are wired to do one thing really, really well. I wrote the book to help people figure out, number one, what is that one big thing? What's that area I could really excel in? How do I figure it out? And then what do I do with it? Once I figure it out, how do I get it on the map? How do I get it noticed? Maybe it's being a writer. And it's not really about a job. It's really more of a purpose, why you were put on this planet, what you were called to accomplish. And figuring that out, and then figuring out how to get it out there, for people to know about it, because that's going to be key. It's just gotten a lot of acclaim, and I would love for people to check it out. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you go. I think it would really help people understand that in today's distracted, disrupted digital world that we live in, to stop trying to keep up with everything and start learning to focus. I just believe, Craig, that the most valuable commodity of the 21st century will be undivided attention. I think we're being pulled in so many ways that we're going to get to the end of our life and realize, oh yeah, we tweeted a lot and we posted on Facebook and we kept up with our email, but we never really accomplished anything. We never really did what we felt like God called us to do. And so this book is kind of one big thing is kind of a wake-up call to help people realize, okay, what is the priority for me? What's that one big thing I could change the world in? And then figure out how to go out there, do it, and how to get it noticed and on the radar.
I've got a really good example of that from Dan Ruppel, a mutual friend of ours who spoke in my class in Concordia. He said something and I immediately wrote it down. He said, focus on significance, not success, or more than success. And we are so wired these days with everything we have, Phil, to go after success. But significance trumps that. And if you look at Jesus, was he a success? Wow, they nailed him to a tree. Okay, is that success? And everyone disbanded. But he was a person of significance. Talk about that for a second.
That's true. So true. You know, Mother Teresa, I don't think she was, it wasn't party time in the gutters dealing with lepers in India. But out of that, she created a global ministry and has impacted, won a Nobel Prize. It impacted millions of people around the world. So it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be on stage. You don't have to be a big Hollywood person. You don't have to be a famous writer. Just figuring out that one big thing. One of the things I encourage people do is that one big thing should be a very tiny niche. In other words, I tell when I teach classes here in Hollywood, I tell directors, don't just try to be a great director, because there's millions of great directors. That means you're competing against Spielberg and Scorsese and Tarantino and Michael Bay and everybody. What about being a brilliant director in a certain budget category with a certain type of film? Create a little niche where suddenly the competition becomes less and less and less.
And you become the go-to person.
Absolutely. The illustration I never tire of using is the woman who's won the most Grammy Awards of all time. It's not Barbra Streisand, it's not Celine Dion, it's not Beyonce or Aretha Franklin, any of the greats. The woman who has won the most Grammy Awards of all time is Alison Krauss, the bluegrass player. And that's because no matter what happens in the rest of the Grammy Awards, she so dominates her niche that whenever they announce the Bluegrass Awards year after year after year, she's going to walk away with them. And so as a result, she's got a lot more than anybody else in history. So very often, dominating a very small niche is your key to getting on the map. And as a result, now it's made her so famous that she's done a rock album with Robert Plant. I hear she's thinking about a classical album. Now she can do anything she wants because being the master of that small niche is what put her on the map. So as you think, I would encourage people to get the book, One Big Thing, Discovering What You Were Born to Do. And it will really help you figure that out and really create a strategy for how to get your message heard, your talent seen, and it'll make a difference for you.
We will continue the conversation on the other side of the break. We'll see you and you'll hear from us in 30 seconds.
This podcast features engaging conversations with leaders, artists, and creatives sharing about current trends and insights shaping our digital world and faith-based media. Today's episode is produced by Matchstick Media International, a nonprofit that's passionate about inspiring both visionary leaders and young creatives to harness the power of media to further the gospel. To learn more, visit us at matchstickmedia.org. Now, back to Craig.
I read this in a book not too long ago. Someone posed the question, how do we live our faith in a media-drenched world? How do we do that, Phil?
Well, it's funny. I think that it's not as hard as people think. Certainly there are compromises we're asked to make, but the truth is Christian attorneys are asked to make compromises. Christian plumbers are asked to make compromises. And the truth is, in Hollywood, there are people here who hug trees and worship rocks. So being a Christian is not that weird. What I've discovered is, and this would be a great way to close this and a good thought to leave with your listeners, when you come to a place like Hollywood, or you try to compete in Nashville or New York or wherever you're working, don't lead with your faith, lead with your talent. Mm-hmm. If you come to Hollywood and you tell everybody you're a Christian and kind of expect to be respected, they'll run you out of town. Nobody's interested. But if you come to Hollywood and you're an extraordinary director, if you're an extraordinary director of photography, producer, actor, writer, whatever, they'll listen to anything you've got to say. And so they're looking for talented people. So I just say, be a Christian, no question about it, but don't lead with that. Lead with being extraordinary at what you do. And then people will start asking you questions about what motivates you, what drives you, and what makes you so good at it. And then you can start to share those answers with people. And that's what, I don't know, I see that all the time out here. And I think if people can do that, it'll make a huge difference.
Superb advice. There's a great quote that I just read not long ago from Martin Luther, who said, the Christian shoemaker doesn't live out his faith by putting little crosses in the shoes, but by making really good shoes.
Yeah, so true. Absolutely true. So true. I think God is not honored by someone who's vocal about their testimony, but does really terrible work. I think he's honored more about people who live a life of excellence, and share, when the opportunities happen, they share, but they don't force it. They just focus on doing what they're called to do.
It's been a delight talking to you. Is there anything you want to, you're talking to the world here from from your phone or your computer and mine. Welcome to a digital world. We're talking to the world. Is there a last thought or just an inspiration that you'd like to give to our audience?
Well, I would encourage people to come and talk to me. I'm on Twitter at Phil Cooke, PhilCooke. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. My blog you mentioned at philcooke.com. We have some fantastic, my blog is really about the intersection of faith, media, and culture. And if people are interested in that conversation, then you ought to come and jump into some of the things we talk about, because we've got quite a few thousand people that come in on a regular basis and jump into these discussions, and I would encourage people to do it. And if I left you with anything, I think it would probably be that, whatever dream you have in your heart, I don't think that anything is possible. I think we do live in a flawed world. I think Disney was wrong when he said all you have to do is dream it and it'll happen. I think we live in a world where nobody cares, and you have to there's a struggle involved in your art. Whatever you do, if you're a writer, if you're a filmmaker, if you're an actor, whatever kind of creative artist you are, set yourself for it to be a difficult journey. I often tell writers that the secret to writing is connecting the seat of your pants to the seat of a chair. You just have to show up. Yes. And in fact, it's interesting, and I'll maybe close with this. There's a book that came out a year or two ago called Daily Rituals. and they follow 160 of the most creative people of the last 200 years. They follow their daily routine. That's all. Then no commentary, no talk about their work, just their daily routine, how they do what they do. And it's literally just their daily schedule. And what's interesting is the vast majority are slaves to routine. The idea that creativity is all about inspiration is really not true at all. Creativity is about showing up every day, sitting down at the keyboard, sitting down with a pencil and paper, and doing the work, putting in the time. And so I would just encourage people that if you're waiting for inspiration, it's never going to show up. Inspiration happens when you show up ready to work. And if you can do that, I think some exciting things will happen.
Excellent advice. Phil Cooke, it has been a pleasure to hear from you and to talk with you. And I know hundreds, if not thousands of people will take something away that they can use and be inspired by. And for those who are wondering direction, etc., you've helped to point them in some good directions. Thank you.
You ask great questions, Craig. It's always a joy to be with you, man. Thanks so much.
You've been listening to the 6 Ways to Sunday podcast with Craig D. Forrest, brought to you by Matchstick Media International, dedicated to excellence in media through inspiration, vision, and education. To learn more, visit us on the web at matchstickmedia.org. That's matchstickmedia.org. Your generous donations, large or small, help defray costs for producing this creative podcast. Thanks for listening and subscribing.